The Minister for Safeguarding Children is too busy to meet with a council who's pleading for help.
If we have a proper inquiry in this, it could be the end of the Labour Party.
And Andy Burnham, she should never have trusted.
Yeah. But it was the government that we're really angry with. And the reason why we're really angry is because in a civilised democracy, we say, right, we won't deliver our own justice, and I won't protect my family because I'm giving those rights over to the state.
Yes.
For you to control my behaviour and my violence. But the quid pro quo is you then have to protect my family because you don't want me to do it. So we gave our rights of self-protection and looking after our family and taking revenge on people who hurt our family. We gave it to the state and they did nothing with it for us and allowed it to carry on. That's why the anger is at the government. Is that betrayal?
It is betrayal. Betrayal is the right word, and it's calculated. It's a calculated betrayal because let's look at Jess Phillips, for instance, Minister for Safeguarding Children, women, made a reputation for herself as this no-nonsense brummie who would stand up in Parliament and read the names of the women who'd been killed in domestic violence.
Yeah, I call her a gobby cow. I like women like her who are gobby cows because when I worked for the council, gobby cows in local areas like her who were part of community groups and visitor groups got things done because you couldn't shut her up and she was fearless and people would do things, and that's how I class her, and she's let herself down.
Well, she's built up this reputation rightly.
Yeah.
I would never take away what she's done. She spoke out on an issue when people weren't speaking out in the way they should have spoke out. 100%. Jess Phillips, you always have my respect for that. Yet when it came to this issue, two things happened. It's easy shouting from the outside, which is what you were doing because you were an opposition MP. But now when you're tasked with safeguarding women and children as your job in government
and have power
to do something, you didn't do it, or you haven't done it, to the point where she wrote back to my council. Remember, we've fought our council for 6 years. Our council sending letters to the government is a consequence of what we've done to them. We've took them out the ballot box and they're fearful of us. And so they should be. And a politician should fear the citizens. And they wrote a letter to the government, to Jess Phillips, and she wrote back, and do you know what she said? We're too busy to meet. The Minister for Safeguarding Children is too busy to meet with a council who's pleading for help because it's been forced to recognise that the town's children have been systematically groomed and abused on an industrial scale, so much so that Andy Burnham's report refused to even put a number to the number of children in my town who've been abused over how long a period. And she was too busy. And then you look at her reaction just before Parliament closed and how they tried to sneak the backtracking of we're going to have 5 inquiries, but actually now we're not going to have any, is that they've calculated the politics here. If we do this, what's the cost? And if we don't do this, what's the cost? The cost not to the country, but the cost to them, their careers. And Jess Phillips, Birmingham Yardley, very nearly got took out by the Pakistani sectarians.
600 votes or something.
Managed to keep hold of some of the old clan, it's the clan system, so managed to keep hold of some of that. But if she does this, if she launches and supports a public inquiry, then the investigations will not just be in Oldham, not just be in Bradford, because there are a couple of grooming gang epicentres across this country. Bradford is one of them, where Robbie Moore is desperately trying to get an inquiry over the line, and they won't. It'll be over their dead body. Also, because what's she called? Yvette Cooper. Is she not MP for Pudsey or something? Is it not that way?
I can't remember.
Yeah, but there's other there's layers and layers to this. Right? But what you've also got is we know it's in Manchester. We know they've done it in Manchester. Operation Augusta.
Yep.
Birmingham is another one of those epicentres of the rape gangs. And historically, the evidence is there. I've been putting a file together. It's all in the public domain. I'm just putting it together so we can tell the story so people understand what's happened there. But what's clearly took place is the police covered it up for community relations, the politicians covered it up, the council covered it up.
Yeah.
So how can you be Minister for Safeguarding Children and not want an inquiry into the very constituency, into the very city you represent, where thousands, if not tens of thousands of children over decades have been systematically gang raped? How can you not? And then that you do not. We know why, because some of those arrests will go to some of those men who belong to some of those clans who rely your block vote on, and the 600 you've got has gone, and you're out of a job.
Yeah.
It's self-preservation.
It is. And I'll tell you how she circles that square. And she says to herself, yes, this isn't perfect. Yes, I wish I could do more. I wish I could stop the grooming gangs, but it will cost me my job. I don't care about that. But if I don't have my job, all the other good work I'm going to do will never be done. So she's saying to herself, I'll ignore this bit because it'll keep me in my job, because I'm going to do so much good in other places. It will balance it all out.
And again, it goes back to that. And who are we sacrificing? The white working class.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are we failing to address? The multicultural experiment that has not worked in the way perhaps we had hoped it would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't want to deal with either of those, do they?
They don't. Yeah. And I also think there is a danger for Labour as well. I think they've realised, or they suspect, or they're scared of, if we have a proper inquiry in this, it could be the end of the Labour Party.
Well, I think so. I've been clear with you. I remember the first time I named names with you, YouTube censored, and you had to re-edit your video, didn't you?
Yeah. Took it down and said it's what did they slander or something? And
well, where's the slander now?
Yeah.
Where's the slander now? Labour Party politicians are neck deep in the in the cover up. So much so, we've now got Maggie Oliver, who is an establishment figure. Let's be clear here. She came through the police force.
Yeah.
When she spoke out and she was horrified, and I support Maggie Oliver, by the way, if anyone says anything, I'm just reflecting on the journey she's been on. She first thought what she was experiencing was an anomaly. This is not how the system's meant to operate. Surely something's gone wrong here. And the journey she's gone on is actually, this is how the system operates across the country. She isn't an anomaly. And then she went on a journey of, well, we must speak out. We must go and get the inquiries, And she got played. And she got played by the likes of Andy Burnham because they promised her investigations, but she didn't stop to understand, because she comes from a different world.
Yeah.
I don't blame her. She comes from a different world. And sometimes you've got to learn, ain't you? You learn through your bitter experiences. Yeah. And she's learned.
You have to trust someone at some point.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of things, it's easy to trust someone you never should have trusted.
Yeah. And Andy Burnham, she should never have trusted. Yeah. And he went on this charade of an investigation, but as Tom Crowther, the judge, responded to me on X, Andy Burnham's wasn't an investigation, it was an assurance review. An investigation is something else. Well, actually, you and I can have that debate if you want, Tom Crowther, Casey. But the vast majority of the public across the country thought Andy Burnham's assurance reviews were investigations, not reviews. They thought they were investigations, and he presented them as investigations. And so we had that, and what she found out was they lied, they deceived, so much so that the police's lawyers prevented survivors from giving testimony to the assurance reviews. And Maggie Oliver stood up outraged in January last year, and said that, and I could see she's changing. She's changing. She's realizing she's not going to get anywhere with
through the establishment.
Through the establishment.